The MLS is lobbying IFAB for more changes to the rules of the game. Can USL gain ground during the home-hosted World Cup? And we talked to the possible savior of a USL expansion club. That and more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show that dots the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape. How you doing? Hopefully you are well. My name is Robert Kerr, local soccer guy. And to my side, as always, radio soccer guy, Jason Davis, rocking the county there. I love it.
Rocking Oakland County FC out of Oakland County, Michigan, just for my guy, Robert Kerr, today. So, I don't know if purple's my color necessarily, Rob, but maybe I'll learn to love it. Maybe it'll be something that grows on me.
You're basking in Oakland County's 4-0 win over the weekend. I'm still savoring all of that, and it was stupendous. And I got a shout out to the MK Ultras. There's a lot checking in, but I'm going to meet Ryan Smeltzer. He's coming up from Fort Wayne to come to Thursday night's Oakland County game. So
Ryan is our guy. Ryan is our guy. I also see, I don't know if you'll be able to meet up, but I see our guy, Callan Reese, is in Detroit going to Keyworth tonight. So that's interesting. That's a nice little local visit for you. For the Michigan area, that you're being blessed by the presence of Callan Reese.
Center of the world, Detroit, Michigan.
Absolutely. As we should do every morning, is we recognize our best supporters, our ultras, everybody who is a member and is supporting the show economically with a little bit of help. Mr. Bob, my guy, Mr. Bob is out there. He gave 5 gift memberships this morning already as well. Shout out to Jeff. Shout out to our guy, Homeless Shoe, Zombie. I got to get you a shirt. I still have to work on that. My apologies, Tom. We got to get you a shirt. That's coming.
That's the Rick Roll of merchandising, what you did to Tom.
I didn't do it to him. Although when I resent Kate's jersey, which came back to me because of an insufficient address, and that should be on the way, I made sure to put some duct tape on that on that envelope. Make sure she doesn't lose hers in the mail. Chris, what's up, my guy? We've got Dwayne, who gifted some memberships as well. Shout out to Dwayne, killing it there in North Carolina with Mountain to CFC. I nearly put that shirt on this morning, but I feel like I've worn it a lot because I like it a lot. Shimper Steve over there in the UK. By the Big Lake is here. CD Gobjects is here. Armando is here. Tim is here. I mentioned Callan already. John. There we go. All right. Yeah, I'll put some duct tape on yours, Tom. Don't worry. I'll get you duct taped up.
I love how you've adopted my pronunciation of CD Gobjects.
It's the only way to say it. It's the only way to say it.
It surely is. And I just want to give a tip of the hat to all the Arsenal supporters out there in the world. We're an American soccer show, but there's a lot of Arsenal fans in there. Oh, producer Jenny amongst the American Gunners out there. But I also want to give it a special shout out to my OCFC stream broadcast partner, Mitch Gatsky. Not only is he Gunner winning there, but he's also expecting his first child now. So shout out to Mitch. He can't stop winning this week.
Will he name his child Bakayo? That's what I need to know. Will he name his child or Mikel? I guess you could go with Mikel. Maybe slightly less questions asked if your name's Mitch Gatsky, Bakayo Gatsky is a move. That would be great, though. I'd be in for it. Let's go.
That would be quite the name. You'll never be forgotten if you're Bakayo Gatsky.
If you're Bakayo Gatsky, people will always remember you. That's sort of like being named Shaquille O'Neal. You're destined to be famous. There's no way around it.
Yeah, I'm an accountant called Bakayo Gatsky. Nice to meet you. But support the show in any way you see fit. Thank you to all the gifts being given. We really appreciate that. At the very least, copy and paste us. Hit a thumbs up. Anything will do. On screen, ko-fi.com.
Like it. Please like it. Please like the show. That's a big help to us. Please like the show. I think Mr. Bob referenced the fact that we're not exactly closing in, but we could get to 10,000 subscribers on the channel at some point in the very near future. Like, we have a good shot at that. So if you have not already subscribed to the show, do that. Just subscribe to the show. Cost you nothing to do that. And then obviously next level is to become an ultra. Next level is to get access to the Discord, which is humming, which, all kinds of stuff happening over there. obviously extra content that we're making. I'm going to be doing my office hours, which is just a casual hangout stream that I do on Wednesdays. I'm making that available to the Ultras. So if you're an Ultra, look for the post on the channel page, and you'll have a link not just to watch, but a link to join in if you want. If you want to hang out with me and talk about soccer with me, there is a link to do that, and that's for the Ultras. So check that out.
All right. With all that said, should we get to the show?
Let's go.
All right. Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Let's do it. MLS is joining in the 90s nostalgia craze. Well, they're looking to reinstill rules from back in the day. MLS reportedly lobbying IFAB, the football's international rules guys. They are trying to introduce clock stoppages similar to what MLS 1.0 did way back in the late 90s.
Yeah, my apologies for not putting the attribution here on the screen like I want to do. Usually I try to do, but this is from Pablo Maurer writing for The Guardian, and his sources say that Major League Soccer is pushing for IFAB to at least trial the idea of stopping the clock. And as Rob mentioned, MLS has done this before. They did it back in the late 90s and eventually scrapping it around 1999. This has been an idea out there, right? This is not new. In fact, when I saw the news this morning, I remembered immediately a conversation that Adam Crafton of The Athletic had with Aurelio De Laurentiis, owner of Napoli and a film producer, where he suggested this idea, but with 25-minute halves. Now, that's an interesting thing to conceive. So this idea, like before we get to judgment, before Rob and I throw out our judgment on this, let's just get a little bit of background, okay? A source within IFAB said Tuesday that in their view, MLS would face an uphill battle in terms of implementing any significant changes to timekeeping. So they talk about trials being introduced if there's wide interest in a topic. This one has very little support. So if you're like, I hate this, be mollified that it's possible there's not enough support anyway for this to be a thing. It also mentions in Pablo's piece that MLS has trialed other things, including in MLS Next Pro, the time-wasting rules around substitutions and injuries. That's now been adopted. Those rules have now been adopted across the board and will be involved in the World Cup this summer. This is what Pablo has in terms of MLS and their statements on this. Paul Grafer, vice president of competition for MLS, told The Guardian that reintroducing a stop clock is, quote, one thing that we often talk about, unquote, when discussing the future of the game. When are we going to move away from all of these stopgap procedures and see if we can address gamemanship and match manipulation by having the referee have a stopped clock? We're open to trials around the world and working with IFAB. Ali Curtis, who is the MLS executive vice president of sporting and development and previously was in charge of MLS Next Pro, so pioneering those substitution and time-wasting rules, said they've had preliminary conversations. So again, this doesn't seem to be something that is very far down the road, Rob, in terms of actually happening. And immediately what everybody does, what every soccer fan who cares about the game thinks is, oh, this is just looking for an excuse to do what? Put ads in the game.
Yep.
Put a commercial break in the game. We've got stoppages. Well, then we can throw in a commercial break. Now, I don't probably need to tell our viewers that there's already going to be commercial intrusions in your soccer this summer at the World Cup. And I've seen games. I can't remember which game I recently watched and which channel. And it may have been Fox, because Fox has the World Cup, and they are certainly going to take advantage of the rules that FIFA has now put in place for broadcasters, which say things like water breaks, you can put an ad on screen. Or actually, I think they're allowed to cut away completely from the water breaks.
I think so.
Which at least Fox wasn't doing that in what I saw. I think Telemundo, who has the Spanish language rights in America, said we're not doing any of that. We're staying with the broadcast. I don't know if they're going to be running banners or doing insets or anything like that, but at least they won't be cutting away from the field. We're already down this path. They're already looking for ways. You think it's MLS might be driving the idea of a stoppage of the clock, and they may be dressing it up as a way to combat time wasting and game manipulation. But Johnny Infantino is 100% on board with ad breaks, Rob. He's
Yeah.
100% on board with that.
Well, you think we kind of have a one-track mind going at the top of leadership in almost any organization, but here in the world of soccer, and it's anything that we're not doing is a loss of money. They're not really necessarily thinking about the product of itself and why people love it so much and all that stuff. Is like, oh, if we did take a commercial break, that could be X $1 million. So us not taking that commercial break now is us leaving money on the table. And I've even heard people who don't even like soccer, but they like putting it on TV because it's at least 45 minutes without hearing a commercial. And once soccer became readily accessible and we could watch it on TV here in the United States every single weekend, it's jarring to go back and try to watch an American football
Absolutely.
game, NBA,
Absolutely.
like that. And I'm curious, I have a couple more things to say about this, but the way that they cover the league in Mexico, Liga MX, they do kind of like on-screen ads while the game is continuing. How much does that bother you? Just real quickly before I continue, like, does that bother you? Are you okay with that? Like, if it must be done, is that okay?
If there's actual play happening, I hate it. I don't want anything else on my screen except the actual play when the game is going on. Now, if we're in a 30-second kind of window where maybe the ball's getting set up for a set piece or the substitution is happening, then okay, that's less intrusive. I don't love it, but I can't pretend like that's affecting my enjoyment of the game as I want to see it. Now, the knock-on effect of stopping the clock, which has gotten mentioned quite a bit, and something I think it was actually in Pablo's story, is the idea that if you stick with 45-minute halves and you stop the clock, what do we got now? We got games that go well beyond the 2 hours and change that we are used to, that the rhythm of the game has been for the last 170 years or whatever it is, right? That has been integral to the way we have watched soccer since the very beginning. And it's one thing that, especially when you're new to the game, you go, oh, 2 hours and I'm out? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
some people,
a big appeal.
There may be some Americans who are like, oh, I kind of hope I wish it was longer, that kind of thing. I guess if you're used to an NFL game or something. But what has Major League Baseball done recently in order to combat the problem of long games? They've changed their rules, right? Now, this would do the opposite unless you do what De Laurentiis suggested, which is cut down the time of the half. So go from 45 to, say, 25 or 30 or something like that, because now ball in play time plus ball out of place, clock stop time, and you're adding up closer to the time it would have been with a 45-minute continuously running clock. And that, to me, that is sacrosanct. 2 hours is sacrosanct. You cannot mess with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And I think the only time I've wanted a game to like go longer and play a third half is when we were in Rhode Island and we toured the stadium and missed a lot of the action in the first half. And I wanted to actually get to see more. But these are amongst the things, the changes that MLS and Americans' involvement at higher levels of the game between so this proposal, and then there's also like obviously the VAR inclusion, and there's been a couple other ones. I hate this less on its face value because there's nothing more frustration than you're at home and your team is losing 1-0 and it's the last 15 minutes of the game and it's clear the other team, the opponent, the visiting team has no will to actually play. And now, look, combating that is legit.
And I understand that, and I do get it, and we get frustrated. But what FIFA did this already, or tried to address this already, and maybe we've backslid a little bit. But remember the World Cup in 2022, and then when there were 12 and 14 minutes of added time, because they were trying to combat time wasting, because the referee was keeping time and actually adding that up in a legitimate way, not this kind of nebulous, like, oh, maybe 4 minutes here, maybe 5 minutes here. There was a time when Man United would get 5 minutes of added time and people would go apoplectic because it felt unfair, right? Old Trafford clock was different. Now we're in an era where 10 minutes of added time because of VAR, because of other things, is kind of normal. And again, you already have rules in place to deal with this. You just don't like them. that you just don't think they're, I guess, effective enough potentially if you're MLS in this situation. And again, it's impossible not to see this as maybe some honest attempts to deal with manipulation, but also a way to sneak in more revenue generating opportunities.
Yeah, it can be one thing in the immediate implementation and on the front of it, but yeah, there's always a byproducts and secondary wills behind a lot of this stuff. But we'll keep an eye out. The report says that it doesn't have a lot of support now, but we'll see if that changes as time moves on. But let's get to our next story here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Welcome in. Big question here on Morning Kickaround. With the 7-week break in the Major League Soccer schedule fast approaching due to the 2026 World Cup, can the USL make inroads during that period with the American soccer public?
Yeah, look, there obviously is going to be a kind of question around, does a domestic league need to pause its games for a domestic World Cup, right? The World Cup is the biggest event in our sport, period, no question. And when it's happening in your own country, it feels weird to be counter-programming the World Cup, right? I think there is definitely an argument that why would you be playing while there are World Cup games going on? I also though think, Rob, and I'm sure you have thoughts on this, that it kind of depends on the level of your league. I know we don't have a real pyramid in America, but we do have Division I sanctioning and Division II, and there are clear differences in stadium size and broadcast rights and sort of the glitz and glamour. Yeah, the glitz and glamour. The quality is obviously part of this too. The level of pay for players, right? We have players in Major League Soccer who are making millions of dollars, and we got players in the USL who are lucky if they make $50,000 a year. So if you are the USL, are you in a fundamentally different place when it comes to thinking about the World Cup break? They're obviously not doing it. And that's probably an economic choice, right? When would the USL play their games? How would they make them up? How would they get how do you program your schedule when you control not nearly as many venues as Major League Soccer does, right? That's a major thing here. But if you're going to have to play the way, and I don't blame USL for doing this, if you're going to have to play through the World Cup, is there a way to leverage the World Cup to your advantage while MLS is idle and you're not being overshadowed by that league?
Well, to a cursory search, USL has at least 4 players that are projected to be in the World Cup. So they're not, without being affected by playing through this. So they have players away during their season. But to your point is, so I imagine MLS is making up ground for this 7-week break by a lot of midweek games and doubling up double match week or double match day weeks. And USL probably just can't afford to do that because attendance at a home game, I mean, that's where the lion's share of money is made by USL team, is by tickets, butts, and seats. And it's, any sports league in the United States drawing on a Wednesday compared to drawing on a Saturday is night and day. Even for the most ardently supported teams, a midweek game is not going to draw the same. So it makes complete sense. Whether boots on the ground level, can you ingratiate yourself more to the community? Might people be looking around for local options like, oh, I enjoyed that World Cup game. Oh, I've heard there's a team nearby and there's a game this weekend. Let me check it out. Is that the sort of connection that's realistic, or is that kind of like pie in the sky for an American soccer enthusiast?
Right. Well, okay. I definitely, we need to do a survey, and I'm sure some of our ultras and viewers know this, maybe a little bit better than we do. Are USL teams doing events around the World Cup? Meaning, are they trying to capitalize on interest in their particular communities in the World Cup that they think can then turn into awareness or ticket sales for their product? Like that's something I'd be interested in. Like in Sacramento, for example, are they is Sacramento Republic putting on World Cup events or engaged partnering with whoever to put on World Cup events, because that would they might not need a help as much as some other teams, just the first one that came to mind. But there are other USL teams that probably do need a little bit more of a lift in their community. And if you can find a way to say, oh, there's going to be a World Cup watch party in the plaza at such and such a place on Tuesday, and we're doing half price tickets for the USL game on Saturday, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair, but I think that's made even harder. And I think there's a lot more teams would have done stuff like that had the licensing to do official watch parties wasn't so difficult. We've been seeing stories of like big cities unsure on the planning because FIFA has not been approving these watch parties, and I've heard that they've hired people across the United States to even if a bar even or a local community advertises World Cup watch party, that they could get sued and docked money and fined and whatnot. So there's a lot of organizations. We even talked about in Rhode Island. James out in Rhode Island was saying that, Pawtucket was, has this whole plan for these community watch parties that they haven't been able to pull the trigger on, like finally announcing and organizing, because they can't get those approvals. They're all still pending. So opportunity at that level to do the combo isn't going to happen the way it could.
Yeah, I mean, again, that issue of like the way FIFA, tightly controls their product in a way that makes it impossible to even pop up a projector screen in a town square or in a plaza in a park and say, come watch World Cup with us, and and by the way, there's a team in town. Like, hey, learn about the team. That does stink, right? That is absolutely a problem.
Yeah, I mean, add it to the list, right? Add it to the list of missed opportunities. At this stage, we're a couple weeks out. We've tried to be as positive as we can, but all the news kind of leading into the World Cup has been negative. And having the World Cup brought into the community, I think, is that panacea or whatever. When World Cup's here, soccer's going to explode, and it's these sort of events that are going to aid that. And I'm sure there's a lot of USL teams that would try to do those combo things and be like, the world's game, the most elite level. Well, we're also playing that game right here in your community, and that's being blunted.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so if you can't do that, right? If you're not, then there has to be. Is there another way, or is this going to be? I mean, let's kind of take responsibility away from the clubs for a second and just imagine, in sort of a general sense, does the World Cup provide a boost to leagues at the USL Championship League One level?
Does it add a boost? I mean, ask me again.
Yeah, does it? Does Rob, pay attention? What does the World Cup create a boost for USL Championship and League One clubs?
I think it could and should. I mean, I think if the World Cup captures attention and people that weren't necessarily engaged with the pro game here stateside, it's going to spark more attention than, obviously, than not having it. I do think that it's possible, but people have to connect the dots, and those sort of material things, those community aspect things, like that's one of the big things that people like about the pro game here is the accessibility, and you can be face to face with players and coaches and stuff like that at the USL level that MLS doesn't provide in a lot of different places. And certainly the bigger pro sports, you can't just access these folks, and it's not like embedded in your community the same way. And them being able to have like, hey, picnic in the park, watch the World Cup, come to our game this weekend. And those are the sort of things that would create that spark at the USL level. To answer your question, I think it could, but not necessarily 100% possibility, 100% locked in.
Yeah, I mean, again, like the World Cup is so singular in its size, scope, ability to gather people together across all levels of interest in the game, right? Like the Champions League final comes around every year, and you and I and soccer diehards are desperately interested in the Champions League final. Like I'm trying to make plans right now with a buddy of mine. We're going to watch the Champions League final. How's that going to work? I don't care about Arsenal. I don't really care about PSG, but I'm going to watch that game as if it's the Super Bowl for me. But it's sort of, again, that is a different level of interest in the sport than the person who might be going, oh, the World Cup. It's like the Olympics, right? I know nothing about bobsledding except that I watch it every 4 years at the Winter Olympics. And there are going to be people in this country in particular, because that's the level of soccer's that's soccer's place in our sporting culture, who don't pay attention to soccer, who are suddenly going to be like, oh yeah, the World Cup's here. Great. I'm paying attention. And then from there, that conversion, that ability of if that fan is in a place like Louisville, Kentucky, or Pawtucket, Rhode Island, or insert your USL city here, that thing of turning that person into a diehard fan who now is willing to check in on the local team. In those cases, we're talking about ticket prices being what, $20? Go out to watch a USL championship team play in town for $20.
Yeah, and I think that I rambled a bit talking about like having watch parties and stuff like that, but that could be a conversion rate. You know, the elite level, it's out of my price range, but there's a team in town where I'm at that has affordable tickets for the whole family, and that could be, I think, a place to convert. So to kind of like review, Major League Soccer taking a 7-week break for the World Cup, kind of speculating on whether or not the USL One can gain some ground during that 7-week period. I mean, in the past, people have lambasted MLS 4 playing through the World Cup, so it'd be harder to, counter program your own hosted World Cup, but 7 weeks is a whole lot. So there's games this weekend, and then they don't return until July 16th. So teams are going to return to camps kind of the week leading into the World Cup final. So they are going to try to pick right back up. The MLS are going to try to pick right back up, get right back into action. And then I guess a test of that will be like, how do the attendance and the ratings do for those first few weeks following the World Cup in, both USL and MLS alike, to see whether this magical boost to American soccer will happen, or if it's all just kind of been speculation due to, the nature and the size of the event being on our shores.
Yeah. Hopefully the boost and the boom comes for everybody. This is what we want for soccer in America.
And before we move on to our next segment, I want to remind everyone that Morning Kickaround's World Cup coverage is brought to you by Oakland County FC. This year's the 10th year Bleeding Purple playing soccer in the summer in Southeast Michigan in 2026. Tickets are on sale now, Oakland County FC online, and I've got a lot of stuff. My voice is smattered in there, but the OCFC crew making lots of great content on the OCFC Instagram page and other social medias. Another game on Thursday night and a charity match. The USL 2 team taking on the TST squad on Sunday before they take off to Cary, North Carolina. All right, our guest is waiting in the wings, so we're going to move right along and talk about USL expansion here on Morning Kickaround. Welcome back in Morning Kickaround here, getting to know our district open, Eugene, Oregon. The Sporting Cascades, located in Eugene, Oregon, was due to start play in USL League One in 2026. That didn't quite pan out according to plan, but there might be a savior here for the team. Bill Cornog, a local to the area, joined the ownership and is setting the sights for a 2027 launch. Bill Cornog, welcome to Morning Kickaround, sir.
Hey, Robert, how are you? I didn't join the ownership. I am the ownership.
That's good. That's a good clarification, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I was on LinkedIn this morning, Bill, ahead of this conversation, and I did see that it says hired by Sporting Cascades on your profile, and I thought that was a little funny, considering
Okay,
you hire
yeah.
yourself.
It
I
also
guess.
didn't say Savior, did it?
No, it didn't
Yeah.
say that. It could have. It didn't say that. Look, you've got the background there. I see that you're repping for Eugene and Oregon as you talk to us. Tell us about the process
Actually,
here.
I'm in Portland.
Oh, okay.
I just dropped my daughter off. I just dropped my daughter off at the Cherry Bomb. She's playing for the W League team in Portland, the Cherry Bombs this summer. So I just dropped her off, and I'm going to make this call here at Lentz Park, and now I'm driving to Eugene after this.
Okay. All right. So I'm not up on whether that tree is Portland or Eugene, but good to know. Correct geography in Oregon. So again, like what made you decide to become the owner of Sporting Cascades? You know, with this moment being a local guy, but not having originally been involved.
Yeah. So sometimes the opportunity comes to you, Jason, when you're not looking for it. So it was kind of late January, and I didn't even know a team was going to be launched in Eugene. And as you noted, as Robert noted, that launch didn't go off as planned. And I got a call from a buddy of mine from 6th grade, who's the head soccer coach at South Eugene High School, Dave Peterson. And Dave Peterson called me and said, "Hey, I want you to talk to Dave and John Gallus." Asked him why, and he wouldn't explain why. And so I called them, and they, mentioned that they were looking for investors because, the prior investor had changed his mind on the club. So I got to know the Gallus brothers, who, when I asked my son about him, and my son is very well versed in U.S. soccer, and he knew of the Gallus brothers. He knew John's son, who's playing in college. Said, "Hey, this is a legit soccer family. You need to talk to these people." So I got to know them. Through them, I got to know the USL, and then coincidentally, I was at the Eugene Country Club, and I ran into Bev Smith, who runs Kids Sports, and they control the local stadium. And she, called me like the next week and said, "Hey, we're trying to find a professional club to, occupy our stadium, which is built with the intention of having a professional club." And, it kind of all came together. And I called around to people I thought might want to invest with me in the local community, and everybody encouraged me to invest. So after, talking to the Gallus brothers and the USL and, Bev Smith at Kids Sports, it just seemed like a good thing to do. So I consider this part philanthropy and part, trying to build, a great soccer club that can stand on its own feet economically.
That's interesting. Part philanthropy there also because part of soccer is ingratiating yourselves to the community, representing the community. And that's one of the things that's wonderful about the current state of American soccer is the independent teams, giving the folks of Eugene, Oregon, a team that is their very own to root for themselves. So Sporting Cascades, they had their brand and they were leading into the season.
By the way, Robert, I just going to say, I saw you guys on our prior episode talk about the economics of the USL. So I know it's not a cash flow business. It's not like a laundromat. So I knew I'd have to invest some capital in this thing to get it off the ground.
Yeah. I imagine it's no easy feat and no light lift by any means. But I guess what is kind of your vision? Like, is it much the same as the original one with the same branding and everything like that? How much are you going to change from the original plan from the 2026 launch? And like, kind of what is your, kind of take on it?
So it's a bit of a shotgun marriage because, as you noted, there's, the starting team under the prior ownership is still there. And I've gotten to know that team and I like that team. I know you guys view the logo as kind of meh. I saw that review. And so you didn't pan it, but you also don't view it as as necessarily the best. But I kind of view it as a template. I view it as something that we can riff on in Eugene and Oregon are pretty creative places. So stay tuned. And I don't know if we'll fundamentally change it, but we may have iterations of it that are better and maybe, you might find more interesting. And then, when I think about what success is, in the best sports experience in Oregon is Oregon football in Autzen Stadium. And I'd like to make sure that in Eugene, Oregon, at least the second best experience is going to be to watch Sporting Cascades in Civic Park. And it's a great stadium. It seats max capacity today, about 4,000. I think we could fill it. And then you got to put a good team on the pitch. And I am already kind of working with Dave Gallus and the team on, coach, sporting director. If you looked at my bio, Jason, you probably saw I'm an investor in another holding company that has some soccer clubs, and I'm working on a partnership with those guys. And my objective is to put a good team on the pitch, put a developmental team on the pitch. So we actually want to have players that can, start at Sporting Cascades, but make their way maybe to higher platforms in Europe or the US. And then we want to have an awesome fan experience. And if we can do all those things, I think this is going to be a winner. And then the other thing, and you guys, I think, had a prior show on this. You might have noticed I worked at KKR. I know Ted Oberwager, who led the investment with the MLS, and I talked to him about what those guys are doing. And, whenever you see that much capital flow into something you're a part of, that's actually not a bad sign. So I actually think that they're investing behind a model that, the USL at its best is already executing. So I think if I can execute in Eugene what they plan to do in other markets and what's already being done in the USL, I just think that's a good thing for soccer overall, and it will be a good thing for the Eugene Springfield community.
Well, Bill, if you've watched our show, that our one of our mantras is dot the map. We want as many clubs as possible. Now, obviously, there's a question there of whether they're going to be well run and well supported and have people who really care about the game. And you've already said that you're viewing your investment in Sporting Cascades as this is not just about making money, or this isn't about making money. This is a philanthropy element to it as well, which I think is necessary, because we've yet to see whether these clubs can, generate any real return on investment in certainly the short term. And we need people that are committed for years or willing to at least eat some losses to make sure the club is established. So those are all things you were really aware of. You mentioned the MLS investment from KKR.
Thanks to your show.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. Did you, when you heard about the KKR, because I don't know the timelines here, when you, or what you knew maybe before the rest of us did that give you any pause about Sporting Cascades and USL when MLS is getting that KKR investment? Obviously, USL has also had backers from private equity enter the picture.
Yeah. The decisions were totally independent, so I had no idea. I'm still a big investor in KKR. I'm a big, a stockholder in KKR, and that is, the source of most of my wealth, and that's going to help support Sporting Cascades. But I really had no idea that Ted was working with the MLS on this deal. When it was announced, I had obviously high curiosity about it, because when you read the press clippings, it's a direct competitor to the USL in many ways. But after talking to Ted about it, I still think it's in many ways going to be a direct competitor, right? These guys are going to try to occupy these markets that are not the largest MSAs, but they're going to try to be in the next tier MSA. And, from my perspective, if I do a good job in Eugene, right? If I've got a great stadium, and Civic Park is a great stadium, and I'm going to gift part of the club to Kid Sports. So the city of Eugene and Kid Sports is going to be a part owner with me in this. And so if I've got the stadium and I've got a great relationship with the local community, and we've got a good team that competes hard and fans, like it, and we're part of the community, I think we have a fortress and we've got a market that we control. And, we're not going to, there won't be a competitor that can step in. So you can try to get me to join your group, but you can't take my market. And I think the USL has many markets that look like that. And I think at this point, there's going to be a bit of a horse race, right? Who can occupy markets sooner? And then as you
Signal is giving us a
Ram
little.
portfolio.
Can you
What's that?
repeat that last part, Bill? We've dropped your signal for just a second. Can you go back about 10 seconds?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. No, yeah, no, I'm just saying that at that point it comes down to execution. And if you're in a market and you're executing, I think you're going to be in great shape. If you're in a market and you're not executing, then you get what you deserve. And hopefully, what we will bring to Sporting Cascades is we're going to bring capital. We're going to bring a lot of enthusiasm for soccer, and then I think we're going to bring execution. So we're going to be very focused on this. And one of the other things I discussed with Ted Oberwager at KKR is they're going to have a corporation, really a company that's going to run this holding company. So when you think about these clubs in these cities, they're going to be owned. They're going to be like company-owned stores. And I view Sporting Cascades as like a franchisee-owned store. So I'm a franchisee of the USL. And if you look at restaurant operations, the best run restaurant operations are typically the franchisee, not the company-owned store, because the franchisee is local, the franchisee knows the community, and the franchisee is an owner-operator. It's not just somebody working for a corporation. So I think the owner-operator model is a pretty powerful model. It works in a lot of industries where there's a franchise model, and I think that can work well for the USL. I've been very impressed with the other owners I've met at the USL, and so I think again these people are formidable competitors.
Can I ask you another question? So you are also entering this at a very interesting time, and I imagine this is part of the story for the investment in USL. And it's the idea of creating a pyramid and doing promotion and relegation between the USL leagues. Now, being a soccer journalist for the last 2 decades, you can't get away from that question of whether or not ProRel should be in American soccer or whether it would work here. What are your thoughts on that as now a club owner, where your situation means you could be moving up, and then in the future, if you go up a level, you could go back down?
So promotion relegation is great if you're where I am. It's not great if you're in the divisions above where I am, right? So through Blue Crow Sports Group, we invested in Leganes when Leganes was a second division team. We got it promoted to the first division. That was a great accomplishment. And then, as you know, the most likely team to be relegated is the team that was just promoted. We got relegated. Wasn't the greatest thing. So, starting where we are at the bottom of the pyramid, I feel great about it. And, just now following European soccer as much as I have, look, I think it makes every game exciting. Now, it doesn't make for the best franchise value. So if you look at the value of American sports teams, because there's no promotion relegation in the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. I mean, these are monopolies in these cities, and monopolies trade at pretty good multiples. So, if your team could conceivably lose that monopoly, it's not as sturdy an asset. It doesn't trade it as high of a value. But, I think it's good for the game. And starting in USL League One, I feel very good about my starting position.
Yeah. I imagine the folks there in Eugene are excited that the project is back underway. There's a new set to play date and the new ownership. Yourself, singularly you, not a group, has a plan in action.
Well, me and
have ties.
Kid Sports.
Him and Kid Sports, yes.
Him and Kid Sports. And so you have local ties. Obviously, you're a Eugene guy. You've been involved in soccer on a multiple levels. But if I could ask a KKR hat question. And I enjoyed hearing you talk about kind of like there's kind of an arms race sort of thing going on. With soccer and creating soccer teams and building stadiums, that's an incredible amount of investment, front end investment. And obviously, private equity firms, like, they're about, making profit. So where does that huge amount of front end investment, how does that equal profit at the end?
So it doesn't necessarily mean profit, right? I mean, when money flows into something, there's going to be some winners and there's going to be losers. And I think what you have to look at, Robert, is the asset class gaining value, or is the asset class losing value? And I think when you've got investors like KKR putting money into this, I think that's telling you that the asset class is going to, gain in value. Now, within that, some clubs are going to win and other clubs are not going to win. So that's where you get back to what Jason mentioned, which is you got to invest and you got to execute and you got to compete, and have a good, you got to have a great experience with the community. If you do those things, I think all that capital moving into the category means that people that have well-run clubs, those clubs are going to gain in value. I mean, my investments in Blue Cross Sports Group, none of those clubs have necessarily been cash flow, businesses, but they've increased in asset value. And you guys know this because you guys are expert at this. Just look at the franchise values of all these clubs. People have made money. They haven't made it through dividends. They haven't made it through cash flow. They've made it through appreciation in the franchise. So, I think that with that capital flowing in, I think with soccer increasing in popularity in the U.S., I think this is going to be, a positive for people that have well-run franchises.
Thank you for that answer. That's very informative and educates us here as we, document this. You said, I think, did you say a horse race? And the USL and MLS Next Pro are definitely in a battle for the mid-size cities and the cities that have shown a keen interest in supporting a local soccer team. And really appreciating your local ties and your soccer background. What has been the local reaction to you? Have you gotten much feedback? Have you heard from community members about since the resurgence of Sporting Cascades set to play in 2027?
Yeah, so it's early. So we're in this probably, I think the announcement was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So yeah, positive really announcement. I've had a bunch of friends I've known for years because my family moved to Eugene in 1976. So I've had a bunch of people reach out to me. We haven't had launch parties. We haven't actually. I'm going down to Eugene today for some press interviews. We haven't really had many press interviews yet. I mean, to be honest, I've been in the engine room working on ticketing, sponsorships, the sporting side of the business, the back office, trying to recruit. So, I'm focused right now on making sure we have the people that we need, and we kind of got the processes and kind of the operations piece of this ready to hum. And I think with more announcements about players we're going to bring in, coaching staff, and kind of other things we're going to do, I suspect that will spark a lot of enthusiasm. Or at least I hope it does.
I imagine so. You if you've checked in on us, Bill, and you've obviously seen our review of the Sporting Cascades badge, and we've talked to Dave Gallis several times on the show, which I'm sure you've seen. We're also going to be, critiquing your stadium situation from afar. The more visuals we have, the better informed we'll be. But of course, we wish you the best of luck. Look, again, dot the map is our mantra because we want American soccer to grow, and it's going to take local clubs that connect to those communities, especially in places like Eugene, Oregon, for us to reach our potential as a soccer nation. And that's what I care about. I want us to be fully built out as a soccer country. So welcome aboard.
Well, thank you. Appreciate what you guys do. Thanks for hosting me.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Bill Cornog, the owner of Sporting Cascades, set to join USL League One in 2027. Stick with us, guys. Thank you for all the comments. What you get the finger of power.
Can I just say that I think he's the second interviewee to do his interview outdoors, but the first where we heard birds making noise in the background for sure. So shout out to Bill Cornog for giving us a wonderful backdrop there in Portland as he's dropping off his daughter to play for summer league women's soccer.
Yeah, I wanted to ask him if they were going to adopt any of the silly antics sort of things that the Portland Bangers and the women's team have instituted out there, but we'll save that for next time that we have them on. But stick with us, guys. We're going to talk about some rumors and some news and notes. Stick with us here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Welcome back in Morning Kickaround, final segment of the day. Great interview there, Bill Cornog, the savior, seemingly, of Sporting Cascades USL League One expansion team. Like to hear his bluntness about there being a arms race or a territory war between MLS Next Pro and USL, because not many folks in that executive chair will be as clear about that. But I mean, this is all coming in a time that's more expensive than ever. And does the expansion come at the same time as contraction in American soccer? I mean, he referenced the asset class, and that is becoming more and more obvious as maybe the folks that can expand are of a certain tax bracket, and the folks that are contracting are of the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, look, the asset class that Bill's talking about is the clubs themselves, right? That's the asset that these private equity firms are investing in. I mean, it's still, it's interesting to hear Bill Cornog as a guy he was with KKR as an executive for 20 years. Now he said he still has stock, right? He's still connected to KKR. He's not a guy who just walked away and took nothing with him. He's still involved. And also now he's invested in the USL. I just think that's a very interesting thing. I don't know what to make of it. I'm not claiming any issues are afoot or there's some conflict. I don't know. It's just interesting that he's now involved locally in a club that, it makes sense for him to be involved in if he has the wealth to back the launch of a USL League One team, while his money is also on some level going to be tied up in quote unquote the competition. I just think that is very interesting. Yeah, Rob, before the show, we were talking about teams are getting squeezed at the lower end, right? Because of rising costs for everything. Travel is more expensive. Housing is more expensive for some of these clubs, particularly maybe the amateur clubs that would be investing in things like putting their players up in places during the summer. We don't know exactly what impact that's going to have. Well, meanwhile, at the top end or higher up the ladder in the professional ranks, we are seeing continued expansion. Does that also mean, though, that there's only a particular kind of club that's going to be able to survive because they're attracting people with the wherewithal, with the wealth, the pockets to kind of eat the cost for a while, to see it as an asset that will appreciate, that one day they will benefit from that appreciation. They'll have equity in their asset rather than, I need to make money out of it, so I need to be at least breaking even, so I'm not putting money in that I'm not seeing in the short term. And will there be clubs that die because of that?
Yeah, I feel like we are going to be making a segment in December, January time about the teams that we've gained and the teams that we've lost, similar to last year, because we're hearing some rumors that there's some teams not coming back next year already at this time. And I think that's public out or people at least typing it on the internet, that there's a couple teams that are planning not to come back at the lower levels. I don't think that's anything that would happen at the MLS level at this point, but definitely lower down the table.
Of course not. Well, that's the thing, though. Isn't there always churn at those levels? It's just whether or not we believe this is greater churn right now, or if it's kind of just par for the course. And again, any club dying is a failure of the sport in this country. Those individual owners, the people operating those clubs, are ultimately responsible for managing their budgets, for finding ways to market if they're selling tickets, if they're trying to be that kind of club, whatever it is, managing their costs, right? And Bill said, it's going to be down to whether you execute well, whether your club survives and has value down the road. And I don't know if I've ever quite gotten a handle on the tension between, okay, you're local, you're an owner, you invested, it's on you, right? Which is the general American mindset when it comes to capitalism is if your business survives, great job. Congratulations, you did it. Your business fails, your fault. You screwed up. Sorry, bud. You picked the wrong location. You picked the wrong industry. You didn't market well enough. But when we're talking about a sport like soccer, there are so many other elements involved in whether a club is successful. And some of those are governance questions, right? It's the US Soccer Federation's role in setting the standards and doing the things that will help clubs survive. Obviously, it's organization around leagues. I mean, so much of what's happening right now, and you know this intimately, Rob, is down to how far do we have to travel? How much does it cost to get the bus? What are we doing to get to the places we need to play games, and how does that hit our bottom line?
Yeah, and thankfully, I'm associated with a team in the Great Lakes Division USL 2, which the whole division is in Michigan. And so I know critics have said that USL 2 overexpanded. It used to be only for players that are explicitly going pro. It used to be called the PDL. And now it's bigger, but at the same time, the amateur teams that exist can do so at a lighter expense on the travel, because the farthest trip is from the east side of the state to Grand Rapids. It's 2.5 hours. But there's some divisions and in some leagues and in the past for sure that would be their closest team would be 2.5 hours away. So if there's a contraction of amateur teams, that could spread quickly, because travel is a big thing to keep into you. It's a big part of the line items on your budget. And if your half-hour, 2-hour ride turns into like 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe we even have to take a plane even to make it there and back again. Like that just kind of blows that up, and like a couple teams losing here and there or dropping off here and there could spread things. So we're at a time of pause for concern where there's a lot of excitement and filling up leagues. We're dotting the map and we're excited to, but hopefully that is not, taken out at the knees by the current economic state of the country and the world.
Yeah, and those things you cannot do anything about them, right? And there will certainly be some disappointment if the state of the world, if the increase in fuel costs or the increase in everything impacts our ability to grow soccer clubs. But we are still living through the biggest explosion boom of soccer club building in American soccer history, period. There's no question about that. And even if it retracts by 15%, Rob, we will still be in the biggest boom moment in American soccer history. And it's not even close.
Yeah, it's going to be attrition. The people that do it the right way, hopefully, or the situation is in their grasp, in a better way, have a better grasp of the financials and what things to maybe lay out some funds for, some resources for, and what is maybe ancillary. I think those sort of decisions are going to become more important than ever. Interesting. I saw a comment about our guest saying like he's playing both sides, so he's always coming out on top. That's interesting. Like maybe using his profit from one of his prior investment to fund his local more philanthropic current investment. That's kind of an interesting way to look at it. But John Stark saying someday investors that haven't acted now will regret. I think USL will displace a lot of minor league baseball teams in the long haul. Well, we certainly saw that in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. They have a minor league baseball team that was definitely in the heart of a lot of folks. We heard a lot of people saying like, was it the Paw Sox? Was it
Paw Sox? Yeah,
the Paw Sox. Like definitely were near and dear to a lot of people we talked to, unprompted. Like, hey, the baseball team left, the soccer team came here. And I think that might be a theme in a lot of different places like this around the country.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a baseball guy too at heart. I grew up watching minor league baseball. It has a special place. The team that I watched when I was a kid that had me, loving baseball actually disappeared and moved and relocated because of the same sort of pressures that are impacting the game now. I don't know that I love the idea, just as a baseball guy, of soccer replacing minor league baseball. I don't know that I love that. But if we're talking just from the soccer perspective of it, then absolutely. Like to have that thing where you have a local connection to a club that represents you. And we saw it in Pawtucket, right? that it didn't matter for them that that was a minor league team, right? They were still connected to it in very deep ways. I do think we have this debate sometimes on this show, and we had it with Grand Rapids because Grand Rapids went MLS Next Pro. And
Yep.
immediately a lot of us judgmental soccer fans go, why would you join up with the minor league and not with the independent league like USL is? And I'm not sure it's going to matter all that much, right? Like, I kind of would like it to. I would like there to be discerning soccer fans who go, I don't want my team to be connected to a network of clubs that's meant to develop players for somebody else. I want my team to be about my town and only my town. But that's just it's a very small difference in the mind of a lot of people. Didn't matter and obviously there's cultural things there too, right? Minor league baseball goes back 100 years. So of course people are sort of used to that dynamic. I don't know how that's going to play out. But I do think that there are lots of places that either don't have minor league baseball teams, have seen their minor league baseball teams shut down, but for reasons that, Major League Baseball has made changes to the minor league structures. And soccer is a natural place to go. You just hope that this is not sort of a land rush that's going to ultimately end up with clubs who are not ready to stand the test of time, because we don't need that.
But I think baseball is not in the place that it used to be. And imagine if those independent teams, and maybe there was a more of a fight for your own town sort of a mentality to baseball all the way down their structure. Maybe baseball would be in a stronger position than they are now. I'm not sure if you've seen the documentary film, The Battered Bastards of Baseball, that's about the independent baseball team back in, I think, the 70s. Up in Portland, Oregon, that, they got that town to buy in 100% to their independent baseball team there. And imagine that sort of experience is scattered all across the country, and how in tune baseball fans would be compared to where they are now, where seemingly it's just like 3 or 4 teams, with mega budgets really going for it, and the rest of it just kind of taking the profit sharing.
Yeah. There's another one on the St. Paul Saints you should watch too. That's a more modern thing. That's not the 70s. That's anyway. It's going to be fascinating to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, it sure will be. And before we wrap for the day, I want to remind you guys that the second production run for the morning Kickaround kit, seen right over my shoulder here, the first edition there, our second run, we're setting a deadline for Saturday, the 23rd. So anyone that still wants to get their hand on it sooner rather than later, act now. The link is on the screen. There's that beautiful MK Ultra Kit 2026, the first ever kit for the show. And it's been great seeing the Ultras and friends alike wearing theirs. And we've heard nothing but good things about the fit and the comfort level. And we want to get those who ordered shortly after the first deadline to get theirs. And everyone, if you haven't got one yet, make your way over to our Fourth Wall shop and scoop up that kit.
Do that, please. In addition to that, become an Ultra, get access to the Discord, to all the perks. I know there are people who are Ultras who can't figure out Discord, but you do get other things, right? If you can't figure out Discord, if that's too much for you, and I get it, trust me, there are other things. You can see the member posts on the Morning Kickaround channel. We got a lot of this. I don't know that we've done, we did some debriefing on Rhode Island and on Pawtucket, but I do want to, again, thank everybody there who said such nice things about the show. We had people who cover Rhode Island FC tell us, like, I wasn't sure about what you guys were doing initially, but I see it now, and I really think you guys are on the ground floor of something that's happening in American soccer. That's the explosion of the teams that are popping up in places like Pawtucket, like Eugene, Oregon, and we can be a place to cover these teams, to talk about them. I mean, where else are you getting this stuff? Where else are people talking to the new owner of Sporting Cascades in Eugene, Oregon? I mean, I hope people appreciate what this is. And if you do, and you want to keep us alive and keep us going, we just need a little bit of your support.
Yes, I echo everything Jason said. And it was great to hear folks say some nice things when we were out in Pawtucket, and that we were pulling at the thread that people were interested in, wasn't necessarily getting tugged on by the other outlets that you could choose to follow and watch along with. But that about does it for the show today. Be on the lookout for a post. We're going to maybe find there's a myriad of American soccer documentaries being posted on various outlets. So we're going to put up a poll and see which one we should tune in to maybe watch along together, or at least have a recap all together on. So I'll be on the lookout for that. Get your order in if you haven't done so already, and hit us a like, maybe even copy and paste maybe your friend group. Tell them about Morning Kickaround, why don't you? But we will be back here live Friday morning for more Morning Kickaround. So until then, be brave, stay safe, and enjoy your soccer.